So we are live on youtube.com/The Alliance blog, and we'll be talking in just a minute. I'd like to give the viewers a second to jump on. Ready mixes in my ears. And sometimes I talk comic books, so if you want to talk comics, you can do that too. Here. Now we go to the fun stuff. Oops, that's not how it's supposed to be.
Claire, what grade are you in?
Right now I'm in 4th, but I'm soon going to be in 5th.
Good. I'm glad you know the future. That's perfect. Now, why are you excited to be here tonight?
Because I'm just excited.
Yeah. No other explanation. Now, I do believe, tell me the truth, is it true that your dad has a ringside seat but didn't get you guys ringside seats?
That is true, but it's because of his YouTube channel, okay? It's his YouTube, okay?
Her dad's an influencer. Let him go, guys. But your dad's awesome, right?
Yeah,
See, he's awesome!
He's awesome. That's the news.
Give it up for Claire. Thank you so much.
Can you believe that there's some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast? Shame on you! Shame on you! My name is Ella Envy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion. And I'm Kinsey Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion. And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog, what is it called again? Podcast, period. Or you're ugly. Pretty Power approved.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, the United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance Vlog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby. What is up, everybody? This is J Cal, and welcome to the PreParty, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J Cal, like I said, and I'm here each and every Tuesday to talk to you about the National Wrestling Alliance, sometimes about the United Wrestling Network, and all in all, we like to have a good time on this podcast. And I want to make sure, am I out of focus? I'm a little bit out of focus. There we go. I got my Dubby with me. Today we're rocking the big energy tiers. If you need some energy, brother, you can't do better than Dubby. I mean, you can, but they're the official sponsor here at the Alliance Guys podcast and the PreParty. So make sure that you're, if you want to try a different version of an energy drink, try Dubby. My pals, my friends, you're all here in the chat. I see you guys. I see you. Mike is here. Doty's here. Willie is here. Let's see. Lane Bricks is here. The Alliance Gold is here. By the way, programming note, Tim will be filling in for me next week. If you don't like Tim, I suggest you think twice about the decisions you're making in life, because Tim will be hosting the pre-party. He'll be with the other Alliance guys, and he'll be sitting in my chair for the Alliance Guys podcast next Thursday. Tim is going to be a very active man. Jeremy from Wrestling with the MMA is here. Terry McDermott's here. Michael Manning's here. Good Lord, Michael Manning, where you been? What's up, brother? Oh man, I'm having a good time already, and we're not even going. We're not even going anywhere right now. It's Tuesday, man. I'm coughing, but we're here for the power. And this week's power, it's a little bit lackluster. Let's be honest. We don't have the big marquee matches that we've had more recently, I should say. In this episode of Power, we'll get to the matches. We're going to see a From the Vault, an encore presentation of our pal, who was actually on this podcast last week. You want to go check that out with the Thrillbilly, Silas Mason. He absolutely tore the roof off of this place. If you haven't listened to it, make sure you check it out now. But yes, Silas Mason was on the show. We had all of a sudden my brain stopped working. Had a great episode last week. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But then this week, sorry, Mike just got me right there. Media M5, also known as Mike, sometimes known as Matt when you're really, really tired, says, Dubby, when you can't get your hands on cocaine. It does come in a white powdery substance. However, when you put it in water, it doesn't look white anymore. I have a comment here on the TikTok, which we're also live on, and B Davey 66 says, what time does the NWA start? It starts at approximately 54 minutes from right now on youtube.com/NWA. That's the NWA Power. Like I said, this is kind of a lackluster episode. It's a feeder episode because the pay-per-view is this Friday on Fight TV. And I want to know if you guys are getting that pay-per-view. I wish I had my laptop handy. We'd put up a discussion here in the chat. But yeah, it's going to be the pay-per-view is looking pretty good. I'm excited about the pay-per-view. This week's episode of Power, got to be honest, I'm not thrilled about. But we'll talk about all this and a little bit more. But let's get to some of your comments here in the chat because, well, that's what makes this show fun. It's very interactive. At least I try to be interactive. I try to talk to you, the fans who are in our chat each and every Tuesday, so we can have a dialogue. And maybe your voice isn't on this podcast, but your messages are being read and you are part of the show. So let's get to it. First of all, Michael Manning's here, like I said. Terry McDermott says, sometimes we talk Marvel Comics. We absolutely do sometimes. Not only do we talk Marvel Comics, man, that trailer for the Blue Beetle, woo, man, that looks like fire. So far this year, right, because this is supposed to be like DC is supposed to be going down, and I watched Black Adam. I thought Black Adam was great. I thought it was good. Not great. It was good. I also am very much looking forward to Into the Spider-Verse 2, which is being put out by Sony Animation. And then, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out May 5th. You got the Blue Beetle, which I believe is coming out in June. There's a lot of great films coming out if you're into comic books and sci-fi. So stay tuned for that. Dodie says, Jay, is healthy enough to preserve my sanity after seeing Billings booking and AA's camera? No, it's not. It's not going to help you there. In fact, it might push you over the edge because it pumps you up, man. And all kidding aside, even if I wasn't, being endorsed by Debbie, every time I drink this, what helps me is it gets my energy levels higher. It makes this podcast to me a lot better because if I was mopey and down, I don't think it'd be very fun. But it keeps my brain, that sense of fog that I have a lot of throughout the day, I don't have when I drink Debbie. And I think that's good because it helps me be on my toes, especially when we're talking to you guys in the chat. Let's see. Media says, oh, who's saying what's up, Willie? Willie's saying to read his messages, guys. If Willie's messaging you, make sure you read it. It is Taco Tuesday if you'd like. Or no, I read that so wrong. Oh my, I must be hungry. It says, woohoo, it's Tuesday. Tuesday is your Power Tuesdays. But it's also Taco Tuesday if you want it to be. Michael Manning says, haha, on holiday this week so I can stay up late for once. Can't wait for 312. That's right, man. You live in the UK. Oh, how's that going to work? Because UK airs at 9 p.m. at least, I think, in Chicago, which I think is like, I guess like 7 p.m. here. Are you going to stay up or is that getting up early for you? I'm not sure how that works. Dave Scooby says, like and share. The countdown is on till I head to Chicago. Scooby, you're going to be in Chicago. That's, of course you are. Of course you are. And hopefully you're going to see Chris Adonis become the new NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. James is getting the pay-per-view. And Mike says, wait, Friday? A Friday pay-per-view? Yeah, well, Mike, this is the weekend. And it's kind of interesting because here in the United States and I guess all across the world, people celebrate Easter this Sunday. So with Easter being this Sunday, I don't think too many wrestling companies are going to be having pay-per-views just because the demand might not be as high as it normally would be. But with that being said, you know, you still got Friday and all day Saturday to try to get as much going as you can. Plus, you got to remember, too, that Billy's trying to schedule these shows, these wrestling events, if you will, around the Smashing Pumpkins touring schedule. And then, honestly, like, we'll get more into this in a minute. They've got Friday is the pay-per-view, which is August the 8th. Wait, what is... Now my brain's not working. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Friday, August 7th. Then you've got TV on August 8th. And then the following week, they're going to Australia. The first concert is on August the 15th, which means they're probably leaving August Friday the 14th, maybe even the 13th. Who knows? But with that being said, like they had a very small window to get this in. Plus, they're going to do, like I said, not only the pay-per-view on Friday, but on Saturday, they're doing 2 tapings on Saturday, both in earlier afternoon and an evening edition. Of course, those will probably carry some of the TV for the NWA while they're off filming the shows in Australia. Now, the interesting thing, and we'll get to that in a minute, actually. I'll save that for later. But, you know, AAA's already released their version of the footage from the NWA versus AAA event that happened in Mexico City literally 1 month ago today, and that was the World is a Vampire tour. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. I want to see more of your guys' comments, and then we'll get to it. Michael Manning, having a beer for Bushwhacker Butch. I honestly had every intention of having a graphic for that. My bad. I did not have one ready. I feel kind of bad about that. Of course, Bushwhacker Butch also of the Sheep Herders, and Sheep Herders were at one point the NWA Florida U.S. Tag Team Champions, had a blood feud with the Fantastics in those late days of the NWA with the Jim Crockett Promotions and the Mid-Atlantic Territory and all that good stuff. So we do wish the family and friends of Bushwhacker Butch, condolences. And, I like to say that, he had a life that was a very good life. He got to travel the world wrestling. He got to entertain people. He got to wrestle for the biggest company in the world, and got to put on some of the best matches that he could. Of course, by the time they got to the WWE, it was a very different style of wrestling for them, and they had changed a lot, but that probably extended their careers quite some time. They were in their 40s before they even got to the WWE. So that, with that being said, I mean, they had a very long career. And, 78 is not young to me, but, he had a good life. So it's sad. And when any time somebody passes, it's tragic to me. But he had a pretty good life. So condolences to Bushwhacker Butch, man, not easy for me to say today. Yeah. And I think he passed away at age 78. All right, more of you guys is in the chat. Dave Scooby says, I'd rather have a Power preview episode hyping up the pay-per-view. I think you're right on that. I think I would too. I think I would much rather prefer an episode that was, detailing the matches, telling the story to get it hyped up. Look, there's going to be some interesting matches tonight, but by and by, this is kind of a throwaway card. James Bill says, time to call the coroner. Homicide on Power tonight. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll get more than that in just a minute. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. Terry says he might skip this pay-per-view, and I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, and see, DKM, my pal, my friend, he calls me when I mess things up, and sure enough, I think I did say August, and I meant to say April. This is the month of April, not August. Thank you for pointing that out for everyone who didn't acknowledge it. Appreciate you, pal. You're the best. Mike says, sucks that today is finally Rolando better not win. Yeah, the finale is today. I feel like this is a very lackluster finale. Of course, Saturday they're going to have, or Friday evening, they will have their pre-show, which usually indicates that they probably won't have a USA on Saturday. The pre-shows for the pay-per-views have kind of come in the same way that they would have their Saturday USA episodes, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure about that. Michael Manning says, yeah, 312 will be 2 a.m. In the UK. So yeah, I you and Fiona might be watching that at 2 a.m. while the rest of us are watching it after dinner. We'll see how that goes. Tony says, since we're NWA guys, I'll say rest in peace, Sheep Herder Butch. There you go. Better. Mike says, as a teen, I was not able to get used to the sheep herders becoming the bushwhackers from barbed wire to kids' toys. That's true, man. And I remember my dad was never the wrestling fan. I always thought my parents let us watch wrestling, right? We got to watch all the pay-per-views, both NWA and the WWF. And my dad had 3 favorites, the Bushwhackers and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And it's because they were goofy and silly. And my dad appreciated that. My mom was a huge Sting fan and a Lex Luger fan and a Hulk Hogan fan and anybody with a body, I guess. But, geez, Mom, what were you trying to tell me? Anyways, it was getting back to the sheep herders. They were such a violent tag team. And again, Crockett Cup 86, they had that big match with the Fantastics. I would have loved to see them in the WWE, WWF, but of course, like, it was more geared towards children. The WWF wasn't meant for a PG-13 audience. It was for kids. Even people back in those days would say, WWF is more, fantasy and geared towards kids, where the NWA was more sport based. At least that's how I felt as a kid growing up. Our pal Tim says the sheep herders terrified crowds in their early days and made the fans laugh as the bushwhackers in later years. Not many can say that. 100%, man. You gotta celebrate them for that. Maybe they were never the most dominant tag team. Maybe they never would be. But when you think about the bushwhackers or the sheep herders, I mean, that contrast in style, they went from a very dangerous tag team to a very beloved tag team. So I remember I think it was Luke being eliminated from the Royal Rumble, like almost in seconds. They came out, did their thing, and then tossed them right over. The great Hisa is here. What is up, Hisa? Terry says, I'm not really a fan of Tyrus or Adonis. Only reason I haven't decided to buy it yet. I hear you, Terry. And I would not call myself a Chris Adonis fan. I like Chris Adonis. Actually, you know what? Let me reverse that. Maybe I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm actually rooting for him on Friday. I'm rooting for him for several reasons, the least of which is when I see that guy holding a title belt for the NWA, I could put him on a poster and put him next to Roman Reigns. And maybe Reigns is a more dominant champion, and maybe Reigns is a better wrestler, but I don't feel embarrassed. I could put Reigns on a poster next to Tom Latimer, and I'm definitely not embarrassed. But when I see Tyrus, especially a full photo of Tyrus next to Roman Reigns, I'm like, wait a minute, come on now. Now you could go to AEW and maybe putting MJF next to Tyrus is not as awkward, but to me it is. I think Tyrus is an absolute joke in the ring, and I think it's an insult to wrestling fans everywhere that he still holds the 10 pounds of gold. And I don't foresee the NWA taking the belt off of him anytime soon. But I, for one, am just tired of the mockery that this guy is doing to the business. His first title or second title defense was against Rolando. Come on. Are you kidding me? Rolando shouldn't be challenging for the world's heavyweight title, and Tyrus shouldn't be world's heavyweight champion. There, I said it. Jody says, if you feel pissed that today's episode is a throwaway, let's remember that the main event will be held by two managers who put themselves over instead of their wrestlers they're managing. 100%, Dodie. 100%. Mike says, Chris Adonis assures the NWA public that he will beat Tyrus. Well, okay. I think I'm all caught up on comments, so I'll jump to that. We are literally less than a week away from the NWA traveling to Australia. And as we've talked about on this show before, if I had my notes ready, which I don't, but maybe I can pull them up real quick. As we talked about on this show before, when they head to Australia, they are going to have 15 days in Australia from April 15th through April 30th. And actually, that's probably a few more days in there for travel, right? I'm talking about they're holding events on April the 15th, April 16th, 18th, 19th, 22nd, 23rd, 26th, 27th, 29th, and 30th. All in succession, right? They're having all of these shows as part of the World as a Vampire tour. Now, if it's like how it was in Mexico City, there will probably be a ring in the middle of the festival. And during the show, you will have bands performing on stage on the main stage, and then there'll be a secondary stage to the right of the concert venue. And in between sets, they will have, well, maybe not in between sets, but during the concert series, they will stop in action and have an entire wrestling show in the middle of the venue. At least that's how it was in Mexico City. And with great results you saw in those videos that you've seen leaked from AAA, the videos that I've leaked, the pictures and stills that the NWA has released, you see a huge crowd surrounding that ring. And I guarantee not everybody that was in that venue was there to see the NWA. That's for damn sure. And it wasn't like those were the superstars of AAA either. It wasn't Chessman. It wasn't Hijo de Vikingo, right? It wasn't La Parca. I don't even know if La Parca is still in the AAA. But what you got were some of the lesser known names. Like, let's be honest, Blue Demon and Vampiro, both well past their 50s, well past their prime. You had Octagon Jr. and Commander, who Commander had a big splash recently in AEW, but neither one of those guys I would consider top level guys. You didn't have Black Taurus. You didn't have not that I would want him, but you didn't have El Patron, right? So they had not their A-list guys, but their B-list guys. And it was still a huge crowd. It was still a huge gathering. So if the NWA had that kind of result in Mexico City for a one-day festival, I imagine if they do the same thing in Australia, it's going to be more non-wrestling fans than pro wrestling fans. And if you think about it, tell me the top 10 wrestling promotions in Australia. I'll wait. Go ahead, list them. The reason why I'm facetious like that, and the reason why I bring it up like that, is because there's not a lot of Australian wrestling promotions that are out there. In fact, there isn't very many good ones. Now, my friend, friend of the show, Pole Jump, who used to be a message board contributor back in the day on our old message board, that he has a promotion, All Star Wrestling Australia. He has not been invited to participate with the NWA, which is a damn shame if you ask me, because number one, the guy loved the NWA. Number two, loved Chris Adonis, so that would have been a match made in heaven. But then there's other promotions. There's the Explosive Perth Wrestling. There's World Wrestling Australia. There's a few wrestling promotions out there. The group that the NWA is working with, I'll be honest, I've never even heard of them before. Their talents I'm unaware of. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be an awful show. It just means we're going to be introduced to some new faces. And depending on how it's set up, again, in Mexico City, they filmed almost 2 hours of pro wrestling. I would say about 45 minutes each. And again, when you start putting in promos, entrances, TV show, intro, TV show, outro, all that good stuff, I'm sure you could stretch that into 3 different shows. if in Australia they do the same thing, I mean, we're talking about 10 shows in 15 days. That's a lot of content that you're creating. Almost like you don't need to tape a second day in Chicago because they're going to have so much footage. Now, that's all hearsay. That's all just, we think it's going to be because that's what it was in Mexico. I'm hearing that when they go on tour in the United States, it probably won't be full-on shows. It might be matches. It might be matches in between sets. I don't know exactly how they're going to pull that off, but I'm really hoping that they can. Getting back to the comments real quick, we'll continue on with the Australia discussion here momentarily. But let's see. Mike says, but yet those are Billy decisions. Yeah, I'm fully aware that he is the guy that, when we celebrate the NWA, Billy 100% should be the guy celebrated. And when we criticize the NWA, Billy's 100% the guy that should be criticized. And whether it's, look, you got Tom Latimer as the TV champion, something that I feel like is long overdue, but I really feel like is going to be beneficial for the NWA down the road. He's a great guy to hold that belt. I hope it advances his career. I don't think at this point Tyrus has much of a career left. Not in the wrestling ring. Let's see. Michael Manning says, I just got caught up with the last episode of USA. I just want the Fixers to have their flag belts. Michael, you're not alone in that. But Billy just won't allow it because that, like Mike said, the other Mike said that those are Billy decisions. I think the shame of all that, and I know DCam wrote this somewhere. I don't know if it was in our private chat or another chat or on Discord or wherever. But you went through that whole thing with Bobby Fulton, and then you didn't even have him be the guy to take the belts back. Like, oh man, what was the point? Dodie says, you can hate Tyrus what you want, but Rolando don't belong in wrestling business, and I legitimately hate him. Dodie, I'm not a big Rolando fan either. And you know what? I will say this. Between the two, I'd rather have Rolando, but I'd also leave Rolando in the junior heavyweight division. He'd be an attraction, like Micro Man. Like, look, you could do things with Rolando that would be interesting. I don't know what you could do with Tyrus at this point to make him interesting. Rolando should not be calling himself the world's biggest heavyweight. He should be like how Rey Mysterio was when he first broke into the business. It should be shock and awe every time Rolando steps in the ring. He should surprise people. He should get in the ring and do something that's going to shock the audience and steal a victory. Maybe he can't. Terry says Rolando fighting heavyweights is a disgrace. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'm sure Billy it goes back to when, Rey Mysterio beat the Big Show, or when Rey Mysterio Jr. beat Kevin Nash. I mean, it's all part of the show, right? I agree with you. It's not something that I think makes a lot of sense. I want to see competitive competitions. I want to see guys that legitimately look like fighters and wrestlers. And look, Rolando has a spot on the roster, but I agree with you. I don't think he should be in the heavyweight division. Michael Manning says, I like Tyrus and the Rolando. Very entertaining. And see, and there's your perspective right there, guys. There's someone else who watches the same show that you're watching and says, hey, I like these guys. And that's cool, man, because you know what? As far as I'm concerned, there's no wrong answer. And whenever you hear me speak about this, it's what's best for Jay, what I think would sell. But Michael Manning likes Rolando. Michael Manning likes Tyrus. I like Tyrus's promo. That's the best thing about him. I hate his in-ring work, and I don't think he's very good in the ring anymore, but his promos are money. Sam Retro's here. What's up, Sam? Mike says, you're right. Maybe two good promotions that can be considered pro all around in aspects. Many, they are shindy. Sam says, I couldn't find anything about them on the internet. And I think you're referring to both the Australian promotions. And the only one that I've heard about, and this, again, going back to our pal Pole Jump, he's the one that smartened me up to this. I said, hey, have you heard anything about the promotions who are working with the NWA? And he only knew about what was going on in Queensland. And that was the Pro Wrestling League. Now, they have a Facebook page, Pro Wrestling League, and they're on Twitter. You'll know it's them because it's from Queensland, Australia. And now they just recently had a show on March the 10th. Their next solo show, not associated with the NWA, is going to be in June. And they're working on crowning a new champion for themselves, which is kind of a perfect opportunity because this allows them to gain a little bit of exposure by way of the NWA, by Smashing Pumpkins, by being at this festival, and again, showcasing some of their talents against the NWA. I imagine this will be more of an NWA versus NWA and less of an NWA versus AAA. I don't think you're going to see Adonis out there or Tyrus out there defending the 10 pounds of gold against the top Australian prospect. If anything, I could see the world champion defending against another NWA talent. And, you know, when you talk about Australia, the weird thing is there are exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dates before April the 23rd. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 dates after April the 23rd. And the reason why I bring that up, the reason why I feel like that might be significant is because Tyrus has still listed as his upcoming appearances an April 23rd autograph signing in Houston, which leads me to believe one of 3 things. Number 1, he's going to miss the first part of the show, of the tour, and come for the second part of the tour, which would start on April the 26th through April 30th, meaning he'd be on the tour for about 4 days. Or he will be on the first part of the tour from April 15th to the 19th and probably leave on the 22nd, allowing him to have opportunity to get to that book signing on the 23rd. Or my more favorable, well, I guess there's 4 options, because the other option is maybe he's just not on this tour at all and the 10 pounds of gold won't be defended in Australia, which I think would be an absolute crying shame, because the last person to do it was your former world heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis. Before him, Colt Cabana, Adam Pearce. I don't think Rob Conway got out to Australia. I could be mistaken, but I don't believe he did. And I certainly know that Jack Stain or Tim Storm defended in Australia. Like I said, I don't know if Rob Conway did. I know Cahagas did not. So, yeah, it'd be, I think, for this show to be deemed successful in the eyes of the fans, I think your world's heavyweight champion needs to be defended at least once on this tour. And, you know, when you have so many dates back to back to back to back, I mean, gosh, if somebody like Chris Adonis, who, don't get me wrong, maybe he's not your favorite choice for this, but Adonis is a guy who travels everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. When Nick Aldis was in, where was he at? In Poland, right? Chris Adonis was there, man. And when Nick Aldis is wrestling in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, for the Hart family, you know who else is there? Chris Adonis. And you know, I brought up my pal Pole Jump, who is a part of the the Australian wrestling scene with the All-Star Wrestling Australia. Yeah, Chris Adonis was one of his champions at one point. So when I think of Chris Adonis, I think, man, not only can that guy, not only does it look like $1 million, not only has his promos improved so much since his days in the WWE, not only does he have that marquee name value from the WWE, not only does he wrestle everywhere in the world, you know, Canada, Puerto Rico, Australia, Poland, sometimes does those military-based shows with the USO. I mean, that guy's everywhere. Why not put the 10 pounds of gold on a guy who's literally going to take that belt to Australia and everywhere else and all points in between? So, I mean, wishful thinking maybe. But who knows? Maybe Adonis wins that title in Australia. Maybe he wins it in Chicago. Hell, maybe Tyrus wins the belt back in Australia. Stranger things have happened. I'm going to get to some more comments, and then we'll start talking about this week's episode of Power, and we'll start looking at some of the spots coming up on the USA tour as well. Michael Manning says, I hope AML and MLW will be involved with the Crockett Cup. If there is one this year, hopefully Khan will have the balls too. So I have heard that there is lots of talk about the Crockett Cup, some direct sources and some indirect sources, and I'm pretty sure that the next pay-per-view will be Crockett Cup. I just don't think they have a spot yet for that show. And as soon as they figure out on a location for it, they'll have an announcement. If AML and MLW will be involved, that I'm not so sure of. I think the NWA would prefer to just use independent contracts, independent talents. As far as I've heard, FTR may be leaving AEW if they don't win the titles this next coming pay-per-view that they have. I think that'd be pretty awesome if we had FTR in the Crockett Cup. I've also heard that maybe the Von Erich brothers at MLW are out of contract as well. That would be kind of cool too, to see if maybe a Von Erich family being in the Crockett Cup would be pretty interesting. Media says just keep Rolando as a Harvey Whippleman type. I mean, you could do that too. He is versatile. He could do that as just a manager. Willie says put Tyrus in the parade as a float. The parade of champions takes on a whole new meaning when you talk about Tyrus. Dodie says Billy know how to make Tyrus interesting by booking something worse and stupider in Rolando. Excuse me. Sorry. Our boy, the mayor's in the house. Every time I watch wrestling with someone who doesn't watch the NWA, they jokingly laugh and scoff when they find out Tyrus is world champion. I wish I could say, like, no, you're wrong. Tyrus is great, but I'm not going to cuss because we're monetized on this pay-per-view, on this podcast, this live stream. So I'm not going to cuss, but I mean, there are better options than Tyrus, especially now. Ray had more meat on his bones than Rolando does. I dare you, sir, to go back and watch Rey Mysterio in WCW when Kevin Nash used him as a lawn dart to throw him into a production truck on an episode of Nitro. And I dare say that Rey Mysterio was probably about the same size as Rolando. Dave Scooby says, I just hope one of these days there'll be a rat in a cage match to wrap up a feud. That would be awesome. That would be amazing. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. Mike also says, Jay, the above comment was in Australia. Okay, fair enough. The mayor says, how long before all this comes crawling back to William Patrick Corgan? I don't think he has to. He's working for the Hart family right now. I know that he's supposed to be a part of Conrad's, I guess it's, I don't know what it's called, but his Wrestle Fest, whatever it's called, where they do a bunch of autograph signings. They're going to be doing that in Australia later this year as well. And Nick and Mickey will be a part of that, and there will be matches. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of faces from the NWA appear on that. If William Patrick Corgan will let him. But I don't think he comes back to the NWA. I just don't. There might be enough bad blood, too, between the two now that I think maybe that bridge has been burned. And I know with both of those guys, from little I know of them, but when you burn a bridge with them, it's hard to reconcile that. He says, I like Tyrus as the broadcasting table as a commentator. Yeah, I mean, I think he would do a great job in that role. I just don't think he wants to. I don't think he would be okay with that. And it's a shame because, like, his ego doesn't need to be so fragile. It's obvious that his best days are behind him. You could look at him in the ring. He doesn't look in good shape. He looked in the best shape he's looked was when he wrestled at the 74th anniversary against Trevor in a match that was actually pretty decent. And even then, I think I was more surprised that he was able to do something. Mike says MWA is in Australia. They are decent. I'm not sure who MWA is, but I'll look into that. He says, but that's the only way I like him in regards to Tyrus. Jody says those NWA haters can laugh at Tyrus all they want until they realize we have the worst. And Rolando and Aron put themselves over, and the rest of us are supposed to match. Tony, you're on it today, bro. I love it. Dave Scooby brings up an interesting point. Tomorrow will be day 221 for Scion as national champion. He will tie Austin Idol's title reign. And if he retains the title on Friday, well, I guess he beats it no matter what, right? Because today's Tuesday, so tomorrow will be 222, which beats Austin Idol's. So, okay, wait, I'm trying to pick it up. Math is a hard subject for me. 221 is tomorrow. 222 will be Thursday, which would essentially beat his father's Austin Idol's title reign. And then 223 would be the first opportunity he would have to lose it. So no matter what, Sion will be a national champion longer than his pops. Now, I bet you if you look at the win-loss record, Austin Idol had more title defenses than Sion did in that 221 days. But we'll have to wait and see about that. Excuse me. Let me get a drink, and then we're going to talk about tonight's POWERRR. Debbie. All right. So, I didn't put him up. Oh, your boy Jay just dropped the ball, but I could probably pick it up pretty quickly. So let's see. So for tonight is I'll say this, man. You've got all these matches in the cage, right? You got all these matches locked and loaded. Like I want to see those matches. And it baffles me why you've got these matches that are sitting in the can that are now being viewed by the AAA fans. They're getting to watch those matches. Why can't we? Because I'd much rather see, and I saw it live, guys. I was there live. I'd much rather see Blue Demon Jr. and Vampiro teaming together to challenge La Rebellion for the NWA World Tag Team titles than to see the matches that we're going to have tonight. But nevertheless, I digress. Michael Manning says, maybe a stupid question, but why is the pay-per-view called 312? I do believe that's the area code for that area of Chicago. When you make your phone call to get the Chicago area, you have to dial 312. I believe that's why it's called 312. But I don't live in Chicago, and I honestly never even looked it up. So now that we're talking about it, let's look it up. 312 area code? Yes, that is the area code for Chicago, including the Illinois area. And so if I can just pull these up here now, let's see if this is going to work. Are they here? All right, cool. So tonight's episode of POWERRR has it's a mixed bag. The poster looks great because you got my girl Ella Envy on it, and you got Homicide on it. And Aron Steves looks real menacing as a manager, but to Doty's point, we've got this card is all upside down. Let's talk about the matches that will be interesting, right? Because first and foremost, probably the last appearance we'll see of KiLynn King in the NWA when she teams up with a fourth generation superstar and Samantha Starr to take on Pretty and Power, Roxie and Ella Envy. Now, Roxie and Ella Envy briefly were the Women's World Tag Team Champions following some of the matches earlier in the month. Of course, they lost the titles to Madi and Missa after they had defeated the Renegade Twins. So this will probably be the last match we see for KiLynn King because, of course, she has joined the Impact roster, has signed a contract, and is one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions with Taylor Wilde, who is pretty wild. I'm not sure, I said this might be the last match. It, for all intents and purposes, will be the last match, but I wouldn't be shocked or surprised if KiLynn King continued to make appearances for the NWA. I wouldn't hold my breath for that. So yeah, I think this match in and of itself is pretty much a throwaway match. Again, it's maybe a warm-up match for the former tag team champions. Samantha Starr, I think her most impressive matches were at the Hard Times pay-per-view. I think she hasn't really found her footing yet in the NWA. And as someone who is a fourth-generation superstar, I wish she had a little bit more time to get prepared for the rigors of being in the NWA. I could see her potentially being something down the road, but right now I just think she's not there yet. KiLynn King was amazing. I think KiLynn King could have been a future NWA Women's World Champion had she not signed with Impact. She still might be, but not any time in the near future. And of course, my girl Ella Envy, all the praise to Ella Envy, Pretty Empowered. I think they're going to have a banner weekend in Chicago. I think bold prediction now, and I'll say it again tomorrow or Thursday night, but Ella, Envy, and Roxie will reclaim those tag team titles, and Kenzie Page will win the women's television championship. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So those are, I think, are the two most compelling matches. Well, that's one of the compelling matches. The other one, of course, will be this one, because anytime you put Homicide in the ring, man, you're in for some fun. Earlier in the chat, someone said call an ambulance because Homicide's wrestling. He's taking on Salazar De La Muerte. I'm not too familiar with Salazar, but the name is Salazar of the Death. And I'm just saying maybe Homicide might put him to death tonight in that ring. One thing I could say about the NWA is there has been a bit of a passing gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is the right word for the wrestling. And like you saw a beast mode step into an NWA ring, and they put him in the ring with the baddest dude in the NWA and Trevor Murdoch, right? And the match, Trevor beat the snot out of that guy. And it was a fight. It wasn't so much a match, it was a fight, because they were trying to test the mettle of beast mode. Or beast mode was trying to test the mettle of Trevor Murdoch, however you want to look at it. I think there was a measuring stick there, and when beast mode failed to live up to the potential that they were hoping for, they let him go. And I think that's the same thing with Homicide. Homicide is not the biggest dog in the fight, but he is one of the scariest dogs in the fight. And I think when he goes out there and beats the snot out of these guys, I think it's with the purpose of testing their mettle. Can they help contribute to the NWA? And if Azrael De La Muerte is going to do anything for the NWA, he's got to do it first by stepping in the ring with Homicide. I'm excited about that one just because you're either going to see this kid get beaten up or you're going to see him get an opportunity. And either one of them, I think, would be all right. More of your comments real quick. Sam Retro says, I was wondering the same thing about today about 312 being Chicago. Yeah, I just assumed that. But, yeah, just now it's been validated. Michael Manning says, I hope CJ is feeling better. That is all that really matters. CJ. Christy Janes. Man, I wish she was wrestling. I think it's a shame that she's not in the ring. Mike says that guy was beast mode. Tyrus is oh God. Mike popped me on that one. Beast mode. Jesus. Regain composure. We're professionals. We're professionals here. The Alliance blog. Michael, don't get used to it because he ain't coming back. Like not now, not ever. And what's the deal with Daisy Kills having so much access to tall people? Chris said, good luck with the NWA pay-per-view, not buying it, but wish all well. Yeah, look, man, I don't blame anybody for not wanting to buy this pay-per-view. It's not exactly what I'd say a barn burner, but what I will say about all of the NWA pay-per-views I've ordered, I haven't watched one of them, well, with the exception of one pay-per-view that I thought, man, this sucked. Back for the Attack in 2021 was garbage. I said it. I didn't like it. I didn't like Aron Steves as a pseudo baby face after being a heel for the last 2 years. And then they tried to put him over as a face and put him in the ring with Nick Aldis because Josephus passed away. That was lost on me. And Chris said he spent lots on Mania weekend. Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the thing too. We talked about that. On the podcast on Thursday that, there is some wrestling fatigue, man. And your wallet has only so much flexibility. Like, yeah, you might have a credit card, but how much credit are you willing to max out on pro wrestling? And I know people who went to every single show, maybe not every single show, but they went to, Game Changer. They went to the Multiverse of Madness with New Japan and Impact. They went to Effie's Gay Brunch. They went to the Santino Brothers. They went to MPW. Like, they went to all the shows. And after a bit, yeah, that it gets hard to justify spending another $25 on wrestling. I don't blame anybody. Michael, let's just say that he didn't have the right attitude you need to be a member of the NWA roster. We'll just leave it at that. Sam Retro says, I fell back for the attack because I was thirsty for the NWA wrestling. I was there too, Sam. I mean, I was excited for it. It just didn't deliver. It didn't help that there was zero audience participation. It was like, the extras who were making the noises in ringside. Something was lacking. The energy, there was no crowd energy, so that hurt the pay-per-view. They didn't have the best job of building it up. All in all, it was just wasn't good. It just wasn't. All right, getting back to the show, to Power for tonight. The other matches we have will be, again, the aforementioned replay, encore presentation of Nuff Said's match between Thrillbilly, Silas Mason, and Kratos. This match is a fun match. It's going to be a fun match, but you've already seen it. If you haven't seen it, well, then it's great. It's new for you. But this match is going to be, it's a hoss fight, guys. It's the hossiest of hoss fights. You have two former Alliance Guys podcast guests in Silas Mason and Pollo Del Mar taking on JR Kratos, a man who I followed very closely over the last 5 years or so. But when they're in the ring, man, they make beautiful man meat slapping music. And I don't have a better way of saying it. That doesn't sound right. But Kratos is a killer. Mason is a killer. These guys are going to beat the ever-living snot out of each other for your entertainment. And I think you'll be entertained by that one. I'm going to read some of your comments, and then we'll finish this up. Where do they go? He says the Bob Luce Memorial Battle Royal in the NWA 312 when Luce was the Chicago promoter for the AWA and the WWA. Maybe Fred Kohler Memorial would be more appropriate since he was the NWA Prez. He said, Billy doesn't care about that stuff. We care. Billy doesn't care. Billy grew up. Billy should have bought the AWA rights. He's not an NWA guy. I don't think he ever has been. I think he was a Dale, not Dale. Oh, he was a Greg Gagne, not Greg Gagne. What am I? My brain's not working. He was an AWA guy. He has to be. He's from the Midwest. Michael Benny says, why didn't we ever see Dan Maff again? I think Dan Maff was just on loan from Ring of Honor. And once the Ring of Honor relationship, I don't think it went south. It just stopped working with each other. A lot of that had to do with, in 2019, they were leveraging a pay-per-view that was going to feature a lot of Ring of Honor talent. Flip Gordon. It was going to be Brody King. It was going to be PCO. It was going to be Marty Skrull, right? These were all guys that were booked for this event. You were doing these NWA talents being showcased in Ring of Honor, and likewise, Ring of Honor talents were going to be showcased in the NWA. Thank you, Willie Bowen. Jeez Louise, man, my brain did not get there. I kept wanting to go Greg Gagne, and I knew that's his son. I know Dale Gongier wasn't even a relative. Jeez, man. Yes, thank you, Willie. But yeah, I don't think as far as Dan Maff, he was on loan for the pay-per-view. I don't think he was going to ever be a long-term part of the program. For all intents and purposes, I don't think Maff is under any contract. If he's available to work, hell, they should bring him in. He fits the demo that Billy loves, the big beefy dudes. Why not? But who knows? Sam says Billy was a Georgia Championship Wrestling guy. I see some of that, but he grew up idolizing pro wrestling in Chicago, and he's talked about that. Like, if you guys look, and I'll bring it up in the chat. I think I can pull it up here. If you watch from the Crockett Cup meet and greet, he had him and Jim Cornette. This was in 2019. Him and Jim Cornette sat down and talked with the fans, and a lot of what Mr. Billy Corgan wanted to do was based on things that were happening in the AWA. The link is in the chat if you want to, guys, copy that or click on it for later. It was very informative. Billy kind of just broke down what he was interested in. It's funny because they talked about a TV title, and at the time it was like, that's a joke. But then, a couple months later, they made a TV title. Let's see. And then Chris points out the obvious. Billy was a TNA guy. He settled for the NWA. That's very true as well. And that's why you see a lot of the same guys who were in Impact at that time that Billy was in ownership that you see in the NWA right now. Sam says Billy definitely is a TNA guy. That's for sure. Michael says, I hope they make a big deal of the Bob Lewis Battle Royal tonight. You mean Friday night? I don't think they're going to do much talking about it tonight. Like I said, this is a throwaway show. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of it. Dodie says, if Billy was an AWA guy, can I demand for a big but technical guy for world champion like Nick Bockwinkel? At least big guy who could wrestle like Jerry Blackwell and Billy Love, not the same part. Dodie, you're on it today, brother. Love it. Oh, man. Sam says, I agree with Chris. After TNA crossed him, he just took a chance on buying a dead promotion pretty much off nostalgia. Sam Retro, first of all, how dare you, sir? You're still very much in part of this whole group, but how dare you? There was very much an existing NWA brand before Billy bought it, and there were a lot of suitors who would have purchased the NWA had given the opportunity to do so. But yeah, he took a chance on a brand that had value in the past. They call it a legacy brand. He did that also with Dumont. He bought the rights to Dumont, and I would love for someone to start up the old Dumont network again and put a bunch of old TV shows together. But I don't know, man. Billy's eccentric. What he chose to do with the NWA, what he chooses to do with the NWA, it will never make sense to guys like you and me, but it makes sense to Billy. Let's see. Jody says, Billy loves a big guy, so do I. Now, where's Cyrus the Destroyer? That's right, man. Get those All Japan guys here. And he says, good point, Jody, regarding Bockwinkel. Of course, the main event for tonight, and I don't even know for sure if this is the main event. I don't know. They don't really explain match listings, but without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, in a Titanic Tampa Streetfight, you've got Rolando Freeman, the manager of the Spectaculars, taking on another manager, Aron Steves, in what's sure to be the most lackluster street fight you've ever seen. I don't have a good thing to say about this. I mean, it's not a mutual death match. No matter what happens, they're both going to be at 312 pay-per-view. God willing, we'll get rid of, Gags the Gimp at 312 pay-per-view, God willing. But, even that, it's Good Friday, but I don't know if it's a great Friday. I don't know. This episode, I think, is extremely lackluster. It seems like this is kind of a waste of time. And I mean, look, I'd rather watch it. Instead, we're getting matches from a pay-per-view that was over a month ago. We're getting matches that are lackluster, that do nothing to hype you up on watching the pay-per-view. In the chat alone, we've had 5 or 6 comments saying, like, I'm not ordering this pay-per-view. And I don't blame you. I'm going to order it. I'm going to say, look, the NWA has earned a little bit of carte blanche with me. Their pay-per-views are typically good. Not great, good. Worth the $25. But I for everyone that's saying I'm not interested in buying the pay-per-view, I get it. But that's going to do it for us on this Tuesday. Remember the other Alliance guys, and that's Jeremy, Dave, Scooby, and our pal Tim from the Alliance Gold. They all converge right here on youtube.com/the Alliance blog and on twitch.tv Alliance blog to talk about last week's episode of NWA USA, to also talk about the booking that's happening in United Wrestling Network and a lot of other fun stuff. Not the booking in United Wrestling Network, but the fantasy booking that Dave Scooby comes up with. A lot of his ideas are solid. It's a fun listen or watch. I listen to it because I drive home at that time. And then we'll be back on Thursday night. It'll be me and Jaden and, of course, DKM, and we'll break down, of course, this episode of Power. Plus, we'll give our previews and bold predictions for 312 pay-per-view. Hope you guys will join us then as well. It's always fun to be here with you guys on Tuesday. I won't be here next week. You're going to have Tim from the Alliance Gold. Of course, he'll be filling in all of my duties next week. So get ready to get sick of Tim. But until then, we'll see you guys at the matches. I'm not even ready to say goodbye yet, but we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for checking out the Pre-Party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA Power every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are